Hello. Do you want to play a game?
Be food and drink and ghosts, and perhaps even a few murders. You're all invited.
Hello and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we combine alcohol and horror for your entertainment. Today we're continuing on with the Evil Dead franchise and making a drinking game for Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2 was written, once again, by Sam Raimi, but helping him with writing duties this time around was Scott Spiegel. Spiegel goes way back with Sam Raimi, as he was involved with some of his earlier shorts. Some other notable works that Spiegel was a part of is that he was both the directors for Hostel Part 3, as well as From Dusk Till Dawn 2.
Evil Dead 2 starts by recapping the first movie, but changing a few elements such as Ash and his girlfriend Linda being the only people that were at the cabin. After the fairly different telling of the story, Ash still finds himself at the cabin and he is joined by more people. With the new group of people comes pages of the Necronomicon that can send the Deadites back to their own time period.
Just a bit of a forewarning, there's going to be some mild spoilers if this is your first time watching Evil Dead 2. None of that's really going to take you out of the movie though. So anyways, let's move on to the rules.
The first rule, as always, is death. And in this movie it gave us 6 sips.
Yeah, I guess they're not the most brutal in the franchise, we'll say that much, in comparison to some of the other ones anyways.
Yeah, some coming up in the future I guess, but yeah, 6 deaths, not too bad.
Yep, I think it's one more than the last one, so we're going up. Anyways, let's move on to the next rule. Second rule, as always, screams, cries, or yells. If you hear one, you take a sip. That came to a total of 27.
Yeah, and it's generally Ash. Not exclusively, but it's generally Ash. He screams quite often. He gets attacked. Every time he's attacked, he's screamed.
Yeah.
And quite often he's explaining something in a panic, so he's kind of yelling and not quite screaming, but yelling for sure at those scenes. So yeah, 27 sips, it's definitely a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, let's move on to rule number 3. And this is a new rule that we're introducing. It's whenever the Necronomicon is seen, mentioned, or read from, and this gave us 18 sips.
Yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning at this point that there can be up to 3 sips for this rule per scene. There can be 1 for every time it's mentioned, every time it's seen, and every time it's read from.
Right. And another thing worth mentioning, especially in Evil Dead 2, there's pages that are separated from the book, and I think they have them in a frame or glass box or something, but we also included those as well, so keep that in mind when you're watching for this rule.
Yeah, definitely. Let's move on to another rule that's probably going to be here for the whole franchise, which is whenever you see a Deadite. This came to a total of 15 sips.
Yeah, you usually see a couple per scene. It's pretty straightforward. There's not a whole lot to add about this rule, but like you said, it's going to be a franchise rule probably for the entire thing. But let's move on to rule number 5. It's whenever a chainsaw is seen or used, and this gave us 8 sips.
Yeah, this is the installment where Ash gets his famous chainsaw.
Yep.
And along with that, his hand cut off, and along with that, the attachment to make his chainsaw hand.
Yeah, to put his chainsaw on, and he doesn't actually need to hold it. Well, yeah, hold it in a sense, but it's like
more
part
or less
of him.
mounted.
It's part of him, yeah. So that's where this happens, is Evil Dead 2.
Anyways, let's move on to rule number 6, which is whenever you see the magnifying glass necklace, and that came to a total of 4 sips.
Yeah, we brought this back from the first movie. It's probably not going to be a rule for anything else, maybe in the future, but it's not going to be one for everything.
It might be in the 4th one, who knows?
Yeah, we'll see when we get there, but it's not a whole lot of sips, and I think it's mostly from a recap from the first one too. So it's not super often, but again, it's kind of important because Evil Dead 2 is basically a continuation from the first one, right? So it's still important, I'd say. So that's why we decided to keep it in.
Exactly.
But with that being said, let's move on to rule number 7. It's whenever a POV camera shot is used, and this gave us 9 sips.
Yeah, I guess it's worth saying this is likely going to be a staple in at least a good chunk of the franchise from here on out.
It's pretty common throughout the entire franchise, so you'll be seeing this again.
Let's move on to rule number 8, which is whenever you see a severed body part, and this came to a total of 10 sips. Yeah,
it gave us a good handful this time around. I think it was only 6 last time.
I think it was 6 and one scene was Mercy.
Exactly. So this gave us a few more times. It's what we kind of expected, I guess, and what we expected for the last one, but didn't quite get.
Yeah.
But it's especially prominent in this one, I think, to include because of Ash's hand being cut off.
And you see it a few times in the movie as well.
Exactly.
So I guess it's worth mentioning and saying that.
Yeah, and that's why we decided to bring this rule back, because it's definitely a good one for Evil Dead 2.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, let's move on to rule number 9. It's whenever you see Ash getting attacked, and this happens 13 times.
Yeah, we could have also maybe used this for the first installment, but I guess we didn't end up going with it, which is fine. Ash never gets a moment of peace, is what we've learned, though.
Especially in this one, and moving forward.
Yeah.
Like, there's no time for him to just sit down and relax. His whole life at this point now is just dedicated to killing Deadites.
It's just chaos at this point.
Yeah.
And the 10th rule is whenever you see excessive blood. And that came to a total of 5 sips.
Yeah, not as much as we thought. Reminding you, it is only excessive blood, so it's like basically pouring out of the walls, or like, you know, there's just spewing blood everywhere. Don't drink for any time you see blood, because otherwise that'll kill you. But it's excessive amounts, like it's pouring out basically. Yeah. So keep that in mind. That's why it's only 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's also fine to have some low rules as well. So that's a-okay.
And speaking of which, that leads us to our total number of sips for this movie, which was 115 this time around. And that's equivalent to drinking slightly under 4 drinks based on our 30 sip per can scale, and that's using an average 12-ounce can.
Mm-hmm. I guess it's worth saying that this is a little bit easier than the first installment by about half a drink.
Yeah, it's a little bit easier. Still, I think it's a nice middle ground with that 4 drinks. Not quite 4, but close to 4 full cans. So it's a nice middle ground. I think it's worth saying a couple, or at least one rule we could have included in this one and the last one even, is whenever the woods are moving, like on their own or whatever, from the wind or whatever, we could have included that as a rule from the first and second one, but we just decided there was better rules, I guess, instead. And some of the hard hitters in this drinking game especially was Ash getting attacked and screaming. As a result, they kind of went hand in hand, and it happened quite frequently. So there was little bursts of sips, I guess, for certain scenes.
And on top of that, he gets attacked by Deadites. So
exactly, yeah.
There's another rule added to that as well. So a little bit more for all those bursts. Anyways, with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our drinking game on Evil Dead 2. If you ended up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any other feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below.
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on our next drinking game, which is going to be on Army of Darkness, continuing on with the Evil Dead franchise. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying, cheers to fears.